Hey, Miss Sherry. In. So, um, so welcome to our office hours. This is sort of like when I was
Yay!
faculty, me, myself, and myself, but
Uh-oh.
I got you all. So this is great. And if you're listening back to the recording, we're glad that you made time for that as well. We have a couple of
Yes.
colleagues who are having trouble with technology, so they may jump in or jump around, but thank you, Barb, for joining me tonight for office hours.
Absolutely.
So we don't really have a strict agenda. Barb and I talked the other day and we said, well, what would be helpful? And Barb started to tell me this great story and I was like, wait, save it for our office hours. So we thought that one of the things we could do tonight was just share a little bit, for those who are interested, something that we've learned since the conference, something we learned by way of the conference, but certainly to revisit anything that we shared at the conference. So if something's come up for you all that you want us to go deeper, we have Sherry and we have Dana here that can speak to Nevada rules and dreams as well.
I also wonder, Kristie, if there's
Yeah.
any chance that somebody has a question who can't talk. I wonder if the chat feature would work.
Yeah,
too.
they can totally use the chat feature. So Pam or Darren and Cassidy, you're welcome to do that too. You don't have to talk.
Right.
It's all on you. You're carrying the whole state of Nevada today.
I guess so, right?
We'll take it, Cassidy. You've got great stuff
But
going
yes,
on.
people can use the chat and that gets recorded as well. You can chat privately or you can, but to Barb's point, if you chat publicly, we'll see that and then we can also record the response that you can have in writing.
Yeah.
So Dana, maybe as we get kind of started, I didn't prepare you for this, but is there anything you'd like to add to just this opening or?
Oh, yeah, I might take up the whole hour, but no, I can just share that since the I'm losing my earbuds here. Since the conference, I've had the opportunity to get out into districts and out into schools, and that's always super exciting. And I've been able to see so many wonderful things in practice, like people taking a hold of some of the strategies and actually implementing them or asking questions. So there's some amazing work happening. The teachers are working really hard. I'm getting a lot of questions. People asking about how can they start change. I think they want to change, but they're not exactly sure that, like, how do I actually start it? My school year's already started. It's October. I want to make some changes, but I'm afraid that if I do something, I might really disrupt everything in my classroom. So how to actually start change when the school year's already started. Some of the other, I've heard from teams that now they are doing some combined meetings of their pre-K and kinder. So they're actually having some combined PLC time so that so some of the administrators have really intentionally, built in some time for that collaboration. And really just focusing on children's needs, like rather than the common outcome, but really working on, okay, what does this individual child need in order to access the environment? I've just been really excited about some of the things that I've been seeing out in classrooms. As far as the level of inclusion, it used to be, and Sherry, you'll know this going back farther than me, but it used to be when you would go into an inclusive classroom, you wouldn't necessarily see the disability because the children that were being included were often handpicked, or they were the children that weren't as impacted by their disability. And I was just so excited on some of my recent visits that I'm actually seeing students with Down syndrome being included, with more significant sensory needs being included and having their needs met. And so that's just really exciting.
Yeah, for sure.
Teams are, yeah, like I
beautiful
said,
stories.
yeah, so I could go on and on. I'm really proud of how hard the teachers are working in Nevada. So they're doing a great job.
Fabulous. I'm just
That
going
is
to do.
great to hear.
Sorry, Barb. I'm just going to do a quick public service announcement. We had a couple other joins, and Pam might now have her audio working. So I just wanted to give Tina or Pam a chance to say something if they want to see if their mic works, or they can hover and start their video so we can see their beautiful faces.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Oh, yay.
Thank you, Pam.
Okay, so
Welcome.
thank you.
Is that you, Tina, or is that you, Pam?
That was me. And now I got the
Yeah.
video, but I don't like that part, so I'm going to cover that.
All right, Tina, how about you?
Good to see you.
Hi, Kristie. I'm here, but I do not have the camera on my. But I'll participate by phone.
That'd be fabulous. Thank you. And you can mute
Great.
or unmute as you see fit. All right. So you guys have let Cassidy off the hook. She was going to have to represent everybody. So now we've got a few more joining us. So Dana was just sharing some of her appreciations and gratitude and excitement of things that she has seen even just in the short time since the conference. But we're just going to be open mic here for a second. And so Barb or Sherry, you're welcome to jump in. We'll take questions, and we know there's dogs, so that's all good.
I know.
You can put things in the chat, but I'm going to let Barb or Sherry jump in if they have something they'd like to just set the stage with.
Well, I have more questions for Dana, but you want me to?
Here, let me get Sherry, go ahead.
Well, the one comment I was going to make is not only are more children with significant disabilities being included, but we talked about how when they are included, they're actually participating in the activities and not just the wheelchair being pushed in the room and deeming that inclusion. So that was just another aspect of the improvement of the services they're receiving when they are in the classroom.
Yes, thank you.
That's
Yes.
Yeah, and so Barb, before we go deeper into Dana's, Pam or Cassidy or Tina or anybody who can chat, anything you want to make sure we maybe circle back to tonight? Is there a challenge that you just want to kind of put on the record of something you're kind of wondering about? You're not expecting a solution per se, but you want to kind of add it to the conversation?
I think just picking your brain a little bit about making sure that students do feel like they're part of the community. And we do have some more significant disabilities in our classroom this year. We want to make sure that we're meeting their needs while in that environment with the large number of students. So making sure that that inclusive environment is still meeting their needs that they need to work on as well.
Okay.
And this is Tina, and I don't know if I have any burning question. I've been in classrooms all day today, but I'm so excited because so many of my teachers in developmental classrooms came to me today and said, I really want to do integrated like Marty. So to me, that's like, I'm pretty excited this afternoon.
Oh, Tina, I have chills. Thank you for sharing that. So for Kristie and Barb and those of you who, all the districts kind of label their classrooms something different. You know, we put fancy labels on them and the districts know, but Tina, correct me if I'm wrong. So your developmental classrooms are self-contained classrooms, and then your integrated classrooms are those blended classrooms where it's actually a gen ed setting. Is that correct?
Yes, it's correct.
Okay, so you're having one ask saying, this is what we are, but we want to be more gen ed. So they're seeing that. That's exciting.
Yeah.
Absolutely. I'm thrilled. Now, if I can just make it all happen, that's my next step.
Let's do it.
Cassidy, are you a special ed person by training?
I started out my career as ECSE for early childhood special ed, and then I'm hired right now as the regular ed pre-K with a co-teach classroom. With, special ed teacher.
Yeah. I had one quick, maybe just freedom thing for us special ed people that we worry more than we need to, that a child with lots of needs or a child with an IEP, if they're in an inclusive classroom, they won't get as many dosages or as much intervention.
Mhm.
And I think what my very quick takeaway from the conference was that that sense of belonging far surpasses any need for specially designed instruction. Like, I let myself just go, you know what, if you're happy and you feel like this place loves you, then I really don't care how many embedded learning trials you got today. So it might be a due process, but that's my mindset.
Right. I think sometimes it's the pressure when we have service providers come in and say, are you doing this, 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 this? And it's like, yes, I get that when you're one-on-one with a student, that's wonderful to do, but sometimes in an environment with 20 students, it's very difficult to get that intensive.
And I think we could probably put on our list of things to talk over with Dana is if you guys don't already have, is some examples about how to write minutes in IEPs when you move to an inclusive classroom. I think that is a mindset shift for speech therapists, occupational therapists, everybody. And then people are like, I just talked to a team in Boulder and they're like, if it's fully included and the kid's there all day, isn't that like specially designed instruction for 2.5 hours? And I'm like, it kind of is. Yeah. But that makes me nervous. Like, oh my gosh, am I saying the kid needed 2.5 hours of SDI? So I'm reading between the lines and I don't want to derail the conversation, but I think that would be helpful to answer that question you had, Dana, of how do I get started? Sometimes people are worried about how would I even write this or how would I talk to a family about it? What would it say on the IEP? It's a change of placement. Those would be barriers that we can easily remove. Okay. You might be muted, Dana.
Can you hear me now?
You're back.
Okay. I actually just had a conversation earlier today about special education being a service and not a place. You know, kind of along those lines, in that they weren't sure, like, who could provide the specially designed instruction, or, you know, do they need to be pulled out to get that? And it's like, well, if the gen ed teacher, and this was kind of around letter identification and phonics, and I said, well, letter identification and phonics is part of pre-K curriculum, and if the teacher is teaching it right there in the classroom, we probably don't need to pull that child out to give her specially designed instruction somewhere else on the same thing, and then have to deal with the transition and the movement and all of the things that they're missing for the 20 minutes that they're out of the classroom. And this was actually for a kinder. This was a kinder environment. And so really kind of going back to it's a service, and service is based on really what the child, you know, what's appropriate based on the IEP. And it's, you know, it's not having to be in a separate room. It's, you know, whatever the child, what is appropriate for that child's needs.
Perfect. Good. Yeah. Barb, do you want to jump in with questions that you had that came up, or wherever your mind is kind of now?
Well, I keep thinking about the kiddo that I had mentioned to you that I can share in a little while. But Dana, I really was curious about what you said, that people are wanting to start change, but they're afraid of disrupting the school year. Yeah. So I'm just kind of curious what they're wanting to change that they feel like would be too much.
Gosh, I've heard things like, you know, just the whole structure of their classroom, maybe their schedule, how they start extended amounts of choice time, or how they change how they're teaching. You know, the kids right now are used to coming to a table every day, and how do I change that without throwing some kids into the red zone because they're used to that time and they always go to the table at this particular time. So I think just not, you know, that uncertainty about how do I just start it? And sometimes it's like just ripping off the Band-Aid and saying, okay, after a long weekend, guess what, friends, we get to do something different today.
Yeah, it could be also involving them in the change and having it be in small bits and things like that, that then they are more invested in that they will feel more comfortable with the change.
Mm-hmm.
I wonder if people think that they have to change everything. And even if they were just to change one little thing this year or this month,
Right. Yeah, it doesn't.
Not feeling like they have to change everything all at once.
Right.
Well, and I would add on to that. So continuity, we know, helps the change process. So I love ripping the Band-Aid off, but simultaneously, I would say what's going to stay the same so that there is that continuity. So I would want a very purposeful, what we're changing and what we're keeping. And then, like Barb said, helping kids be a part of that so that they understand the why, that they understand that there's some plan to it.
Mm-hmm.
They'll notice even subtle things if we don't say it. And sometimes we forget to be really overt with children. Maybe it's starting with families, to explain to families that this is going to be a change in our routine starting after this break. And so if your child comes home a little more dysregulated or confused, I want you to know this is what we're doing and why we're doing it.
I also think that we get into kind of thinking that kids with autism, they're the ones who often can't handle change, but it's not that they can't handle it or that you shouldn't do it. You actually should do it so that they
Right.
can get used to it, because that's real life, right? But just doing it mindfully in a smaller increment manner potentially, or preparing them, like you're saying. I love the idea of, after winter break would be a perfect time. They've had a break. They've,
Mm-hmm.
but previewing things are going to be different when you get back,
Yeah.
and having the families know, and even send photos of if they've changed it,
I like
ahead of time.
I like that idea, and then involving the families, letting the families know, okay, this is what's changed in our classroom, after break.
Well, and
So they're
the more there's choice, the more things that for a child who's not ready to change, it doesn't mean they have to. Because now if we're doing forced change, like you said, Dana, we're going to put people in the red zone. So how do we, it's just mapping it out. I think it's back to what Barb said too. Like, what is it you want to change? Is there a logical steps or sequence to it? Who needs to be aware of it? How do you phase people in? And then when do you do things that you rip the Band-Aid off? So for me, if it involves me and my mindset, that's ripping the Band-Aid. Like, quit, taking baby steps, Kristie. Just jump all in.
There we go.
Oh, you good? We'll take a break.
I'm here.
Is that you, Brandy?
Yes. 3 other people.
Okay. So tell us who's there.
My boss, Dr. Hall. Our CEF, Michelle Bollinger, and my teaching partner, Megan Barrios.
Well, welcome, guys. We're glad to have you.
Hello.
Can you say yes, okay?
That's the Brookman team.
Yes.
Nice.
All right. Well, just to bring you up, you can mute your mic at any time, but you can also jump in. You can use the chat. We have several other folks on the line, and we were just talking about if you're ready to do a change, what's the right time? How do you get started? You don't want to upset the apple cart or push everybody into the red zone, but you're ready to make a change. And that could be small scale in terms of how you interact with children, being more of a play partner, how you support children through a meltdown so that we don't do planned ignoring, but we actually connect with children, all the way to a change of placement for a child on an IEP. And so we were just talking about some ways that you get really clear on what it is you want to change and why. Make sure that anybody that are key stakeholders know that you're doing it so that they can help support the child, especially like families, and then prepare children for that transition. But I was getting ready to say, Brandy, and your team as you jumped on, that if it's something that's your mindset, you have a little bit more control over it. That's a little bit more of that time where you can rip the Band-Aid off and just go. Just like, I'm going to be all in with this new way of looking at children's behaviors that are challenging. But when it involves other humans, you may need to go at different rates. And Barb was saying, even for kids with autism, we shouldn't be overly worried that, oh, this is going to be so disruptive for them. This is another opportunity for us to widen their window of tolerance, to really, with support and with co-regulation, to see things that are different, but know that it can be okay on the other side.
And even one way that I might have mentioned when I was there in Nevada is I often will introduce little surprises with like even just a star on a schedule or something like that to children who are extremely, seem really rigid. And that might be the first step to do of just, that's the excitement of young childhood, right? It's like when there's change and there's anticipation of it and it should be exciting. And so opening that door or that window of tolerance might be just little bits. So it might just be on a daily basis, just adding a star on their schedule that just says something new is going to happen here. And it might just be that it's going a different way to the play area. It might be a high five or a low five instead of a high five. Not huge, right? So just introducing that change and surprises can be fun.
Yeah, and when Barb says a star, she doesn't mean a sticker star for a reward. She meant like if they have a visual schedule or you have a visual schedule in the classroom, there could be a star that's like the mystery of what's going to happen next.
Yeah, right. Kind of teaching surprise.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Teaching curiosity.
Anything we can do to, like Barb said, to widen that window. And that's us knowing our kids. But I think, one of my takeaways probably my biggest thing that resonates in my head is when Will said that we've been hiding behind, I'm paraphrasing, this is what I heard him say. We're hiding behind needing to offer a continuum of services as an excuse is how I heard it. And so I think we do the same thing. And that's why, Cassidy, I asked if you were special ed by training, because I think sometimes our special ed gets more motherly and fatherly and worried about a child. And like Barb said, the higher the needs, the more dysregulated this child, the more I have to do this, the more I have to keep it all. And I think that's somewhat of an excuse to not move forward. We're not presuming competence for sure.
It's interesting. One of my takeaways along that same lines is that I think that we do think of developmental classrooms or autism-based classrooms or segregated classrooms as being more motherly or supportive, right? And so it's almost like we say, like I have a student right now that I was telling Kristie about who's 4 years old. And because the child was having some biting behaviors and hitting and things like that, they did interpret it as being stress behavior. But their solution was to say, he should be in the autism-based classroom where there's fewer dynamics and things like that. But at the same time, so I went in and I was talking to mom and I said, but is he making progress on his IEP? And she said, absolutely. And he's making friends and all of this. And so I said, okay, well, hold on. Before changing placement, we might need to look at doing a functional behavior assessment, have somebody come in. So they did that, and they were able to just change when he lined up. So he would line up earlier than the rest of the kids, and then he would come in earlier. And his behaviors went away because that was what they discovered, was that he was overwhelmed in the moment. So then he can stay in the integrated classroom. So I think, but everybody immediately wanted to swoop in and support him by putting him in a more segregated classroom. And I just think that's a good point that you're making, Kristie, that isn't, just the mind shift of going, no, wait a minute, but then what about the sense of belonging? And what about the feeling included in your community and things like that, and how important those are?
Exactly.
Can I say something really quick?
Yeah, please jump in.
Pam. So I've been doing a little bit of research, and I came across something that I thought was interesting, that it said, as inclusive educators, it's time that we move past the self-congratulatory quit congratulating ourselves for integrating our classrooms or having inclusive classrooms, that we need to quit saying that we have inclusive classrooms, that every student in every class is an inclusive kid, and that every teacher in every class is an inclusive teacher. I think we're in a developmental phase, and we'll probably get to that. So I think by saying we're inclusive, we have inclusive programs, but I think that's just a step in the journey to be where we're not talking about it being included anymore, inclusive, that it's already inclusive.
Yeah, it's just the way it is rather than something special to call it a name.
And did I see Miss Janice with you there, Pam?
You did. She's running in and out. She's going to be gone for a couple weeks, so lesson plans.
Yeah. All right. And Cassidy, I may have muted you, so let me know if I need to unmute you. I did mute you, so I couldn't tell where the dog was. So okay, I got you unmuted.
It was mine. Yeah.
Okay. No worries. No worries. So so we're kind of all over. I'm just going to keep calling the Brandy team. Feel free, guys, if you have a question or something you want to make sure we talk about tonight. This is sort of open-ended, and we're kind of going where our ideas are taking us, but we want to make sure that if you had a question or a concern, that you had a chance to ask it or state it.
Well, I did want to ask about the big ideas that that you presented for early learning, and trying to reconcile that with state standards and our teaching strategies goals, and what you thought about how to do something like that. Because I do like the idea of the big ideas. It seems very more streamlined and simple, but because we have other things that we're required to do, what your thoughts are on that.
Yeah, so I'll give you an example from Ohio. So many of my teachers here in Ohio use the Teaching Strategies Gold. Many others use the AEPS, which is the Assessment, Evaluation, and Programming System. And we also have state standards. And then, of course, if you're Head Start, you have Head Start Early Learning Outcomes Framework. So we just did an alignment between all those other things and the big ideas, and I can post on our landing page an example of that document. It's not pretty and it's a little overwhelming, but what we did was we showed all the way up to our State Department how those 16 big ideas aligned with our curriculum, which would be the TS Gold or the AEPS, because that's what we have to do in Ohio, and then how it aligned with our state standards. And then they accepted that as when they came around in our lesson plans or for a verification visit, as long as we were showing the big ideas, they knew we were also addressing TS Gold and state standards. So I'm not sure if that would be something that would be helpful as an example.
Yes, please.
That's more than practically, normal everyday people, that nobody uses the crosswalk. But to show people that we know that these align and can be accountable, the crosswalk was necessary.
Got you.
Okay?
Okay. Yes.
Yeah. No problem.
Thank you.
Yeah. And then it gets rolling out in some momentum, and then we start to say, okay, if these are the big ideas, when we're having an IEP meeting, whether we're talking with the speech therapist or we're talking about special education and specially designed instruction, we don't rewrite things that are those big ideas. We ask each other, what would a communication goal do that would help increase access, participation, and progress towards these 16 things? And then we use our TS Gold as this twice a year or 3 times a year to show everybody that we are working on something like social reciprocity as an IEP goal that's aligned to the big ideas, and the child's making progress on all these objectives on the TS Gold. So it's kind of conceptual, showing people how it's all the same stuff called development, but also splitting out what the child needs to increase access, participation, and progress, and still be accountable. So I don't know if that's helpful or not. Got recorded. Maybe you need to hear it back, but I can also help
understand.
the team if you need a minute to do that together. Okay.
Okay.
Others, did that spark something for you, Barb, or Dana, or Sherry, or other participants? Did that lead you in a different direction?
Yeah.
Are most districts using the teaching strategies gold throughout Nevada, or I know Carson does not.
There are. I don't know if I could say most. It's a mix.
Okay.
So, yeah, some do, some don't. I mean, that's something that the districts have, some autonomy with as far as their curriculum. As far as for outcomes, it's one of the 4 options that you have.
Right.
What are the other 3, Dana?
The AEPS, the DACY, or the Brigance.
Okay. And so Cassidy, kind of behind maybe your question, this that I'm going to share with Team Brandy is sort of a framework. So it doesn't really matter what you want to align it to. If you want to align it to AEPS or the Brigance or the DACY, the framework would still work. So if that helps others that want to streamline and focus on the big ideas, especially for those of you who are trying to bridge pre-K and K, this gives you sort of a unified scope and sequence. Your assessment becomes your measure of performance over time, and then you don't have to worry about trying to write IEP goals that are for the TS Gold objectives or things that get like bogged down quickly. And Barb and I have, I'll also put it on, I'll highlight it in, so on our landing page, guys, down at the bottom where today's office hours are, I've already started to add some things. So I'm gonna put everything that we talked about tonight there, so you're not like looking back around for it. But when Barb and I did some, we rewrote some IEP goals, we call them makeovers. We gave some IEPs some makeovers. We did a few that would show you how to write a goal that is maybe about social reciprocity or joint attention, but still aligns back to a TS Gold objective or an AEPS outcome. So I'll put our makeover book there as well. And if you need a little bit of help, just reach out and say, which one of that shows me? I can't find it in here. But Barb helped me in particular write some IEP-worthy goals for children that have that are on the spectrum or definitely have issues around social exchanges and communication, so that people could still target those big ideas but write IEP-worthy goals. Hey, Barb, do you mind telling that story just a little slower? Because I think you left out a part of it that was super powerful about how they figured out it was the standing in the line thing. I don't think it would hurt us to hear it again. Do you mind?
No, but I also want to leave time for, I know that Cassidy, you wanted to pick our brains on a few scenarios for ensuring people are included. So which one do you want to do first?
Oh, yours is fine. We're not in any hurry, but no, go ahead.
Yeah.
It might answer some questions.
Oh, okay. Well, it's I did do it in a quicker fashion and left out a few pieces that are pretty central. Is that this kiddo was biting at home and at school. Biting was the primary. Yes, he would also do some grabbing and things like that, but biting was, as we all know, sorry, my dog is moaning in the background.
I gotta eat, Mom. I'm going to perish.
I don't think she's gotten used to the time change, I swear, because she gets fed at 5 o'clock and it's 4 o'clock. So I'm thinking she thinks it's time. So anyway, this kiddo is 4 years old. I'll call him Evan. And I took notes just so that I don't miss anything. And he was biting at home and at school. And the school, the mom had really pushed for an integrated scenario for him in the very beginning. And it seemed to be going okay, except for this biting piece, which is pretty major, right? So they were immediately jumping to moving him into the segregated classroom, which was the morning part of the day, which wouldn't work for a lot of reasons. But anyway, so instead of talking immediately about change of placement, they just decided to start talking about having a functional behavior assessment, which led them to look a little bit more at the behavior, of course, and realize that it was in particular at times of transition. And so during transitions, he needed more information about what was going to happen, but then he also needed a less stimulating environment where all the kids were moving and all of that. And so they discovered all they had to do was just have him be come into the classroom before the rest of the kids, both at the beginning of the day and after being outside, and that eliminated the behavior. Well, the interesting part, and so he was able to stay, right? Where instead we would have jumped to pulling him and putting him in an autism-based classroom and not even taken that next level of, like Dana, you were saying, I'm really looking at this particular child rather than the label of autism and what he needed. Because he's made some nice friendships in there. He's making nice progress on the rest of his IEP goals. So there really wasn't another reason except for that behavior to be moving him. The other piece, though, that I left out is that he did start biting again, and even with these things. And so again, they were going, uh-oh, right. Well, really what is going on is his parents are going through one of the most awful divorces and parent time changes that I've ever experienced in a family. And I've experienced a lot. It's ugly. And so, the transitions that are upsetting him are actually not in the classroom. They're at home. And so having that homeschool connection too, the school started giving him pictures of who is going to be picking him up at the end of the day. And that again reduced his anxiety and allowed him to be more successful. We're still in the middle of trying to, make sure, because things flare and, in home life. But again, all of this other stuff is going on that we would have been, still would have been happening had he been in a segregated classroom. Yeah. But he wouldn't be feeling a part of his community and having the friendships that he's built. There would have been one more change for this poor kid too.
There's just fewer people that might get bitten, but that's it.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And maybe not even that.
Maybe not even that. Okay, thank you, Barb, because there were several parts of that story that I hope resonated with you all, that you're like, and they don't always get lucky, because like she said, they figured out, okay, we'll make this accommodation, we'll let him start it, we'll let him go first, we'll let him come in, whatever, but then there's still the biting. So it's not always that you will figure it out on the first go around. And even when you go, oh, okay, there's stuff at home, well, we can't just blame it on home and then go, well, family, get your act together. This is their life right now. So what is it that we can do to support this child who's going through, and or support each other, because this is hard on everybody. So it's just looking a little bit more compassionately and holistically at all things versus the burdens only on the child. And that's why we have the mantra, inclusion's a right, not a rite of passage, because what would allow for that child, making progress and having friends, what else does he have to do to be included?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So, Cassidy, it can be all about you now if you'd like, but
not at all. But
I think if you want to go ahead and give us some scenarios, or a scenario, or a little unpack your initial question, if you don't mind, that would be really helpful.
No, not at all. We have a student that started off the school year that has a very hard time getting away from repetitive behavior. So it was opening the doors and trying to get out of the classroom probably 60 to 100 times in the first couple hours of school. So we found ourselves constantly saying negative things towards him, but trying to figure out how to show the peers that there are lots of positive things to, you know, to be a part of, and trying to get them to encourage him to come play, and, you know, encourage him to, you know, stay away from the door and not open the door, and trying to get replacement behaviors in there. But functioning probably at, you know, 9 to 12 month level, it's been a long journey, and we are definitely still working on it, but I want to make sure that we're staying positive and making sure that we're highlighting on those really good behaviors, but also still trying to keep them safe.
So was he opening the door and running out?
No, it's more of the stem of opening and closing, opening and closing, opening and closing. Loves to watch the door open and close, open and close. But unfortunately, our school leads right out into a street or a parking lot, and there's no gate. There's no, you can't put a child lock on it because it's a fire exit. You can't put a baby gate. You can't, you know, and I think the danger of being right within, you know, a few feet of the street was very concerning to us. So trying to figure out how to eliminate that behavior, but also not constantly say no to him, you know.
Can you tell us why you think he is exhibiting that behavior?
I think he really loves the visual stimulation of watching the door close. And we've tried like toys that open and close, thinking maybe that would replace the behavior. We've tried, you know, sensory things on the door handle to keep him from touching the door handle, like just like sticky things. So trying to, you know, put something different on the door. Doesn't really attend to toys for very long on a consistent basis. Has started to really just engage with us as adults and started to notice the peers around him, but trying to find something that's more motivated than that feedback of the door opening and closing.
Do you want me to go ahead?
Yeah,
Kristie?
go ahead, Barb.
Sure.
Well, my first reaction is that he is, I'm assuming, probably autism.
No, actually not.
No, okay.
No, lots of other medical issues.
Okay.
But not on the spectrum.
Sometimes that behavior can come with a lot of other things. I'm going to guess that that's a soothing behavior for him.
That's what I was going to guess.
Just trying to find another behavior that's more appropriate or safer, I guess, that still is soothing.
But why is he needing to be soothed?
I'm not sure. I mean, it's from the first part of the day. If it's not the door that goes to the outside, it's the door on the other side of the classroom that goes into the hallway, or it's the bathroom door. We've got 3 different doors. So, you know, if you're
so you said he's about 9 months, I think you said, developmentally.
Like cognitively, yes. I mean, he's very mobile. He's pretty much so functioning physically at probably the 3 to 4 year old level, but you know, some of the social skills and the mental functioning is typically more of a 9 to 12 months.
Is he able to understand any visuals?
Not unless it's the actual item, the object.
Okay.
So he's not using like PECs or any kind of even photograph to associate. He typically, when we give choices, just chooses whatever's in the middle.
And what happens if you give him a 3D object to transition to something else? Like what we're still trying to get him.
He's got lots of visual issues as well. So we're trying to get him to even be able to hand us an item still.
No, if you hand him an item when he's doing the door, like to help him transition to something. So like, here, this is what we're supposed to be doing. What happens?
He just drops it and goes, and he tries to ram into your legs to get to the door. So it's just trying to find something that's motivating so that he is a part of the classroom, and the kids are great and they know we're working on it, and we've sat them down and talked to them and really included them on part of the process with him. He's very lovable. They love being around him, but it's more of how are we going to keep him safe, you know, in the school environment.
What are some things that, when is he not doing it?
It typically is when he first comes to school, that is the most frequent during the day, but he does resort
when
back
is he
to it.
Not doing it? He is not at the door.
Oh, when is he not doing it? He's not doing it if a teacher's right with him. Honestly, I mean.
What is the teacher doing?
They are pretty much so right in his viewpoint, working with him, face to face on whatever activity he might be doing. So I believe it's an attention seeker too, not just a soothing. So it's just trying to figure out with 20 kids in the classroom how, our special ed teacher can't be a one-on-one for him, but we also have to have someone with them. So one of us is always right with them for safety reasons.
Kristie, what are your thoughts?
Well, there's several things, and Cassidy, I won't be able to, I wish I could give you a magic wand, but I'm just gonna.
No, no, we're not expecting a magic wand. I just want to make sure that
I want to give
but
you.
We do wish.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
No, I mean we adore having them, and I understand. With going inclusion, we went as a district basically to no self-contained components, no self-contained classroom whatsoever. So I know our placement is the best placement for him. We just want to make sure we as a team are able to help him at his developmental level as well.
Sure.
And teach him some things and get him to learn to, be a little safer in the school environment.
Yeah, I'm going to just toss out a few things that built on what Barb said for you to take back with your team to think about, okay?
Okay.
So I'm going to always invite you to, as a team, do what you've already been doing, which is what does he need versus what does he want. So
right.
As you are trying to keep your own morale and confidence up, because it makes you, it can whittle away at your own confidence. It's like, I have no idea what to do with kids. I'm incapable of helping children. Like it can just.
I haven't gotten that point yet, but no.
Good. So sometimes, if we can reframe the child and go, right, they need something, it makes us feel more detective when we go, they want something. So just caution around they want attention or they're attention seeking. It's much more conscious and can, when you're already starting to feel like this is a foe, not a friend, it's a slippery slope. So I just want to invite you all to keep that lens that you have so beautifully stated, that this is the best place for him and we're doing the best job ever and we want to do better. So that might help. The second thing is building on what Barb said, just spending a little bit more time thinking about what captures his attention. Right now it feels like one-on-one, but I want you to watch it with new eyes. Even in the one-on-one, when is it the most, what you would say, productive versus one-on-one, I'm just barely keeping the lid on, right? Because there's a difference between I'm one-on-one, I'm barely keeping the lid on, and one-on-one, we're just hanging out in the same space.
Right.
So I want more of that one-on-one, we're hanging out in the same space, not the one-on-one, I'm keeping you from escalating, because that is super taxing. Okay. So when Barb
that's also,
said,
I think what you're describing, Kristie, also is that this child, if you're saying 9 months-ish, may need co-regulation.
Yeah.
Which is what you're describing of being in the same space in that. Mm-hmm.
And that then, so exactly what Barb was saying. So then I say, that's your goal. Like, I don't want any other pressure on you. That's my third thing. I don't want you guys having phonological awareness, social reciprocity, making a choice between objects. Like, your goal is for him to be self-soothed by soothing with you through co-regulation. I'll put some more articles up on co-regulation. But for me, even if it's just for a week, and you guys can be in the same space without you feeling like you're holding the space for him, that's all. I feel like upping the ante to now we're co-regulating, make a choice, play with the toy, be independent. We're just kind of moving him a little quickly, and then he goes, woo, this is not safe, run, get the door.
Right, absolutely.
Right?
I think we do that a lot too, that when we feel like things are going well and we're co-regulating by the door, that, oh, okay, he's ready. And that we jump, and not in your classroom, obviously, but I've seen this where we go, okay, so let's jump to this busy table activity or whatever, where it may be he may need smaller. When you think about a 9-month-old child, you're not going to do this. You're not going to jump them into a super busy environment right away, right? So it's taking little steps towards that.
And don't worry if he's attached to one person or even one other child more. Same thing with a baby. Babies don't like a bunch of different caregivers. They like the same one, the one that makes them go, ah. And so
Feel soothed.
If that's you, sorry, Cassidy.
No, we've been really having to, and I think just to make it so that he's working with all of us and also give whoever's with them a little bit of a break and a breather, so they're not burning out, because 5 hours is a long time for him to handle.
But if their goal with him is to be calm, it's not as stressful. And I know what you're saying, because you have the 20 others to worry about, but that's when you do the last thing. And I know time's right now. So always say to your team, guys, we have 3 teachers. Us as adults are teachers. The child is their own teacher, and the environment. So I don't mean this for your little friend that's running the doors. He is like needing co-regulation with you all. But if you're like, but there's these 20 over here that aren't getting my love and my attention, and they're not gonna be able to read by the time they're third grade, danger, danger. Pull out your triangle and say, these 20 can teach themselves. They can use the environment. It may not be as fun, like you'd like to be over there teaching them, but for right now, this little one needs some all hands on deck. So what materials do we put out? You know, we channel Maria Montessori, and we get some really good self-correcting discovery STEAM kind of activities. So these other 20 are just rocking it without us physically.
And we've been very thankful that we do have that. I think with the peers and with most of the other students in the classroom have been wonderful and very, very helpful to us this year. So we're not too concerned with that. It's more of the safety and how to help him replace this behavior.
And I really think that, you know, if you can give that one-on-one co-regulation at all to him now, you're going to get there faster for him to be integrated into the classroom than if you try and do just the safety and not giving that to him. You're going to keep having to do that for longer, you know?
Just the things to think about. Dana, I think you had something, or if
I do. Cassidy, just a quick question. I had the opportunity to spend a little bit of time in Cassidy's room. Was he there when I was there?
No, he was not. He was actually sick that day. So
I was
unfortunately, because we would have loved for you to have met him, but
I missed this one. I was like, either that.
No, he was out. He was our one that was absent. So
all right.
And Cassidy, again, none of us have all the knowledge that you and your team has, and you all have much to celebrate that you're sticking with it, and it's November, and we're all exhausted, and you're doing an amazing gift for this child. These are just invitations of things to keep you going.
I have one more quick question just for
if anybody needs to jump off,
whole group,
go ahead and jump off, but you go ahead, Cassidy.
Okay, I don't know if it's something that Dana would be more helpful on, or who would have this answer, but we've been talking about a mission statement for the district to try to promote what actually inclusion is to the community a little bit more. And I don't know if you have any resources that we could utilize or look into to help with that.
Let me go through some of my stuff.
Okay.
And see, I think that's going to be very district specific.
Absolutely.
I think you all are doing some amazing things, but I'll go through some of my resources and I'll probably go through all of my resources that I've gathered from Barb and Kristie too. And I'll send that stuff your way.
What I was thinking, Dana, is anything about the core values activity can be adapted, and then we can also pull from JLo stuff about possibility statements and give them a couple of examples to see that's different than the traditional mission statement.
Okay, that'd be great.
Okay.
I know that we got some recording of Will talking too. I don't know if something from there might be inspiring for a mission statement too.
Good idea. Yeah, I don't know if I put those videos on our landing page. Barb was able to capture some of Will's closing remarks at the conference, and we'll put that.
Some of his best work.
It just might give you something. I mean, it radically changed my perspective. So, okay, we have like 1 minute. I have nowhere that I have to rush off to, but I know you all have other things. If you've got a question that didn't get answered, feel free to drop it in the chat. You're welcome to just say it, and we don't have to answer it right now, but Barb and I can maybe, with help from Dana and Sherry, find some resources, and then give us a couple of days, and on the landing page we'll put this recording and anything else I mentioned that we would share, from crosswalk framework to the IEP makeover to co-regulation to mission statement and Will's videos. Anything, Tina or Team Brandy or
Yes.
Pam, anything?
Yes. Go ahead, Michelle.
Can you hear me from where
Yeah.
I'm sitting? Okay. So we have a little one in our inclusion program. She's been in there for 2 years, and some pretty significant cognitive disabilities, self-help delays. The goal of the team is to continue inclusion into kindergarten. But we were wondering if you have some suggestions or recommendations of successful accommodations and supports that you've seen put in place as far as going from an inclusion program with 2 teachers, half-day program, to full-day kinder with 1 gen ed teacher, and some special ed support as far as inclusion and resources concerned would probably be in and out throughout the day, but nothing the entire day, especially as far as some of those self-help skills and some of those things that the gen ed teacher just may not necessarily be prepared for, if that makes sense.
Yes.
So, yeah.
Self-help, do you mean around toileting and things like that?
What was that?
Do you
yes.
mean like toilet?
Yeah, toileting, maybe some eating.
Yeah.
Some feeding.
Attending.
Okay.
And she's just one of, we have several of our babies with autism as well, that is the goal, is to continue the inclusion, but it just looks so different when they get to kindergarten as far as the supports and whatnot. So we're not really entirely sure how to best support them on the next step.
Michelle, this is Dana. I would be really intentional about when you're writing this IEP moving forward, make sure that you're really clear about the accommodations that are needed, and maybe give some examples even within the present levels. So, she's able to line up when provided prior notice and a visual schedule. All of those things that you're probably naturally doing just as part of your early childhood world that might not be naturally done in kindergarten. I would just really be very intentional about including that. So that way, all of those great strategies that you're just doing naturally can transition with her. So that way she doesn't get there without the needs that all of those things that she's already getting. Make sure that all of that stuff goes with her.
Mm-hmm.
Does that?
I'm also wondering if part of that is trusting that if you put that in, that the new team will try and figure it out.
She'll still be at our school, so it'll be a similar team. But yeah, that's definitely, that's valid.
If you know where she's going, it might not be a bad idea in preparing for this transition to invite the kindergarten teacher on her prep or something to come and actually watch her and how she works in your classroom, because that way they can actually see her in action and see her in a successful environment. So if she has that opportunity, during a prep, just to come and watch her.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I'm going to build on that. And again, if anybody needs to jump off, go ahead. It's not rude. We're over, but and Barb, that includes you and Dana too.
No, I might need to, because I need to be somewhere by 5.
I know you do. So
Sorry.
Michelle, a couple of things. So the pro side of what Dana just suggested is it allows any shark music the teacher might have to be turned down a little bit, because she can see her being successful. She can see her having lots of competence. The downside is always what that kindergarten teacher is going to say, which is, but I don't have that many adults in my classroom. So what I would invite you all to do as you're thinking about her transition meeting, and I would do this always laid out, not verbally and prefrontal cortex, because people are nervous. Lay out her needs and talk about what are her needs that are the exact same as all kindergartners. All kindergartners are learning letter identification. All kindergartners are learning how to sit more independently without an adult, blah, blah, blah. Then middle thing, where does she need a little bit more support? And this is what Dana's saying, like with reminders or with a peer buddy or with a visual support, she's able to do X, Y, and Z. So in that messy middle, talk about what environmental supports, what peer supports, what things we can do to make her feel successful without it having to be the adult who does it. Then what does she need that is going to increase her access, participation, and progress? That's her IEP goals. And that really narrow it, focus it. Don't make it everything that I just mentioned. Of course, she's going to need lots of supports, all those things. She's going to need lots of practice and lots of reminders. But her IEP, you don't want that to be the weight of the world. Make it very, very specific about the one or two things that will, like self-regulation skills. You said about attention. What is a developmentally appropriate expectation for that IEP goal? Playing more independently. Well, then that says, okay, does the environment have enough opportunities that are a match for her? If everything is whole group, everything is cognitive, language, and symbolic representation, which are going to be her 3 areas of delay, of course she's going to look like she struggled. So once we've mapped it out, we start to look for what can we do to reduce that heaviness. And it doesn't always have to be the kindergarten teacher, and the she or he needs to see that. So that map lets us not try to hold all of our needs at equal capacity and equal intensity. So we first see her in a classroom where she's thriving, and we go, oh, she's just a 5-year-old. Okay, not so bad. Then we lay out all those needs that worry us, and we rate them. Everybody needs them. Okay, maybe that kindergarten classroom needs an overhaul. We don't have enough play. We got too much whole group. We got too many directions and corrections. That would help everybody if we knock that stuff off. Okay, what's the messy middle for her? What can we do by way of peers and the environment, the other 2 parts of that triangle? What can we do to shore up for her? And then what is really going to need our attention that the special ed person who can't be there all the time can really rally around? So that was a long answer, but I hope that gives you kind of a framework.
Yeah.
Start the conversation, but it's always, I think Dana's right about that seeing it helps alleviate, but I also can hear that teacher. She's gonna be like, but I can't do that because I don't have those toys, or I don't have this much time, or I don't have that many adults. And they're right, they don't.
The other, I'm kind of along the same lines of, trusting the next team. I also wonder if making, all of you have really experienced kind of this mind shift or lens shift that maybe they, maybe having the teacher come and observe might do it, but maybe even stating of what the overall goals of her feeling included is, and her feeling that sense of belonging, again, to kind of go full circle,
that's what we really want.
Primary goal. Yep.
Not that she's a perfect reader.
Yeah, I was just in a classroom yesterday, an elementary school classroom. They're doing a nice job with inclusion, but they are doing the one-on-one because they're trying to cram the academics in, where this kid is trying to look over and listen to the group reading. And I'm like, oh, just let them go over there and be listening instead of having to fill out this little form. that they're supposed to be filling out when they're, he's like this, where the teacher's doing it for him, because he's trying to listen to anyway. So just, it may be a lens shift of what's important, for this child. But anyway, in that note, I apologize. I do need to jump off.
Yeah.
So very nice to see you guys and to hear some of you. And I'm same as Kristie. If you have any questions, please don't hesitate to email me also. If you have specific questions about autism or whatever. All right. Thanks, you guys. Bye.
All right, so I probably need to let you all go, but if you have other questions, you can just quickly put them in the chat. It gets recorded, and I can grab Barb another day, and we can maybe do another recording and answer a few more questions. So feel free to drop them in the chat. Yeah, Sherry, you want to say anything before we get going? Because we kept her so quiet.
Yes, thank you for letting me participate.
Oh, anytime.
Dana, you want to just give closure for us?
Oh, I just want to say thank you to everybody. I am so impressed with everybody's work. I know everybody's working super hard with not enough. I know that's kind of the theme sometimes, is that we don't have enough. But I would say along with that to trust that sometimes you really are enough. And because there's really I'll cry if I keep going, but there's some amazing, amazing work out there. And, I've had the opportunity to go out there and see it all around all of your districts, really. So thank you very much for all your hard work. Please let me know if there's ever anything I can do for you. Email, call. If I can't figure out the answer, I will go to somebody who can help. So just thank you for all that you're doing.
Good. All right. Thank you, all of you teams, for joining us tonight.
Thank you.
And yeah, we'll have the landing page updated in a few days, and then we'll check in with you again and see how things are going in a couple of weeks, couple of months. Maybe we'll do another office hour in the spring.
That would be great.
All right.
All right.
All right, Miss Pam, you're on my list. I'll see you later.
All right. Thank you very much.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye, guys.